Have you ever asked your team to push back on unrealistic requests, only to turn around and say, yeah, you have to do it anyway, when they actually do? This is a real problem in the workplace. On the one hand, we're encouraging people to push back and say no when needed. But on the other hand, it seems like every time they do that, it's overrided. So today I want to talk about that and suggest some ideas that you can better manage expectations with your team and with other stakeholders when these situations arise. Let me start by saying that saying no at work and managing expectations is one of the most popular topics when I deliver workshops or webinars. It doesn't matter if it's in person or online, people are always really interested in learning how to say no at work properly. Because nobody wants to be seen as unhelpful, nobody wants to be not seen as a team player. But on the other hand, it's really, really important to manage our workload and manage our expectations. Otherwise, we could all end up very burnt out, very overwhelmed, and not delivering. The problem is, though, that when I suggest to people that they try different ways of communicating their workload and what the impact is going to be, they tell me, Niamh, that's fine, but my manager just won't listen. Like, it doesn't matter what I say, I'm going to have to do the work anyway. And so we really do have to address that. Otherwise, people are just going to stop talking. They're just going to stop communicating with you. Now, the first thing to recognize is, as I always say, if you're a line manager, if you're in a management position, you are caught in the middle. And I always think of it like you are, on the one hand, getting requests from leaders or external customers, maybe external suppliers, and they're putting pressure on you on things that must get done. There's a real urgency. Well, whether or not it's real or not is another thing, but there's a real pressure put on you to get these things done no matter what. And then on the other hand, you've got a team. They're already working on lots of different things and they're saying to you, I can't take on one more. And you as a manager in the middle going, well, I don't know what to do here. So I'm just going to have to maybe keep on pushing and hope that it all works out. Now, there's a few issues with that. I want to talk about the impact on you as a manager first. That's really stressful. Okay, so it really erodes your ability or your confidence in your ability to manage workload, to be able to get things done, to be able to manage expectations. And nobody likes forcing work beyond what's realistic on people, right? So the managers I work with, they're up at night worrying about their staff burning out or their staff maybe disengaging, looking for new jobs because they know that they're asking them to do too much. And that's not right. So, it really isn't a great position to be in. And what we want to do is try and find a solution that works for everybody, or at least we can find a way forward that is feasible. So, the first thing I think we should be doing when it comes to this type of situational work is to try and get ahead of it. Okay. If we can get ahead of the situation, it's 10 times better. And you can do this by really making use of your one-to-one meetings with your team and understanding what their current workload is. Not what you think it is, but what it actually is. And that means in your regular one-to-ones, asking them what are the top 3 things they're working on, what's the likelihood they're going to actually be able to deliver those on time, what's getting in the way of them, and what were to happen if one of those things had to be moved. What's the impact? What's the ripple effect? And having those conversations up front means that you have a really timely, real world understanding of what's happening across your team. So that then when somebody comes to you with a must do request or another idea or an urgent issue, whatever it is, you already have the knowledge in terms of your team's capacity. And that gives you power. Because if you know the team have capacity, you can say, yes, absolutely, we'll take a look at that. I'll come back to you in X amount of time. If you don't think they have capacity or if you're unsure, you can buy yourself time here and say, look, I'm going to have to check with the team because they're already working on XYZ, which is due in the next 2 working days. And having that information top of mind is so, so helpful for you to be able to communicate confidently. Now, I do appreciate that if you have that conversation, you might be told, I don't care what they're working on. This has to get done no matter what. And in that case, you're going to have to manage expectations around everything else. And it's something like saying, I appreciate if this is a must do now activity, you'll have to understand that there are other things on their desks that are going to slip as a result of this. And I'm going to come back to you with information on that, and we'll have to manage that separately. So what we're not saying is a blanket yes. We're not saying, yes, no problem, absolutely, even though my team are swamped. We're saying if you're insisting on this, then something else is going to give. And then it's time to have a conversation with your team. Now, if you go to your team and you go to one of them and you ask them to take on an extra task, an extra piece of work, and if they push back, I recommend following, I call it the ACR method, to make sure that you both get on the same page and you're both working together in a positive way. So A stands for acknowledge. And what I mean by this is acknowledge the fact that they're trying to do their best in managing their workload, in managing your expectations, in getting things done. If they're telling you that there is so much to be done already and they don't think they're going to be able to fit it in, listen to them and appreciate that they are trying to make sure that what they've already committed to gets done. So I think acknowledging that, acknowledging the effort that they're making and the fact that it's a positive conversation, a positive pushback that they're having is the first step. Now, unfortunately, the second thing you're going to have to do is get yourselves to commit to doing the thing that you're being asked to do. And what that means is helping them understand why this is a must do, even if you don't necessarily agree with the approach, that it's something that must be done anyway, letting them know that you did try and push back and the results that came from that. And just both of you committing that you'll figure this out, you'll find a way to get it done, even with everything else that's going on, and getting that commitment from you to support the person and from them to try their best is what you're looking for here. Okay, so first acknowledge their concerns and their effort in managing their workload, then get commitment on the task that needs to be done. And the third step is to reprioritize. So not waiting until the next one-to-one meeting, not waiting until tomorrow, not waiting until this afternoon. In that situation, sitting down and saying, okay, tell me right now what else is on your desk, and reprioritizing it then and there and reminding them that you have their back, that you're going to be the one that's going to go to the other stakeholders and push back, because it's not up to them to manage this. They can't take on extra pressure from other stakeholders while also trying to deal with a must do now task. And what we're doing here is showing people that, look, unfortunately, even when you do push back, it's not going to work out, but I've still got you. I'm still supporting you. I'm still making sure that your workload doesn't get unrealistic. Now, of course, if there is an opportunity to push back and to say no to leaders and to buy time, I think it's really good to get in the habit of doing that. So if it can wait by a couple of days, even if it can wait a day, get that time for your team and show your team that when it's possible, we can say no. When it's possible, we do have an input to timelines. We do have an input into scope. All right. Because otherwise, it's just people are going to say it's all lip service. It doesn't really happen. So what's the point? And if people stop talking to you about their workload when it gets unrealistic, a few things could happen. So first of all, quality could slip. So they're going to start, cutting corners, trying to get everything done. They could start working through lunch into the evenings, which means that they're going to get pretty disillusioned around work-life balance, might even get disengaged, might start looking for other roles. So it's not a good culture to be building. We really do want to make sure that people feel that they can give that feedback and that it can be acted on if needed. Now, there might be a situation then where you get in an urgent request and everything else still needs to be done no matter what. And that is, it's tricky, but it happens. It does happen. And I've seen it happen in my own corporate career where you're like, none of these can be dropped. And I'm reminded of the idea from project management that we have to consider time, scope, and resources. So if the timing can't be shifted, we have to look at the scope. Is there anything within the workload that can be cut back, can be made simpler, that can be maybe given a different level of effort than originally identified, right? So that's the second thing. And if that's immovable, then resources. Are there anyone else that can help you? And if not, if you're asking your team to work extra hours, to go above and beyond, to, work through lunch, to work late in the evening, to push beyond what they should be doing, you have to think right now how you're going to compensate them. And also how you're going to do a lessons learned activity to make sure this doesn't become the norm. And that's also really important because, look, everyone has those situations at some stage where like it all has to be done and you do have to put in that extra time and everybody has to pull together. And so we can't pretend those things don't happen. But what we have to do if they do happen is first of all, consider immediately how we're going to compensate our team for that extra effort. And secondly, make sure we do a lessons learned straight away so we can proactively put things in place to make sure it's not a recurring event. Okay, so that's it for me in this video. I hope it's given you some ideas in terms of how to better manage this situation with your team and with your leaders, your externals, whoever it is that you would be getting those last minute must do now requests from. If you enjoy this video, please make sure to subscribe and like it to let me know, and that will mean that you'll also get the next videos from me. Okay, that's it from me. Talk to you later. Bye.